Don't stop.
Thanks so much for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. I want to tell you about a little adventure that I did, and it was for my podcast. I was going to do a full episode on this, and I still may, because I'm still doing a little bit of experimentation with this, but let me tell you about my adventure. My adventure was there was this website or app, I can't remember which one it is. It's called Time Left, and basically you go on there and you answer some basic questions and you sign up, and then they assign you the night before, they send you a location to go to the next night for dinner. And you're going to a dinner and you're going to meet 6 to 7 people that you know nothing about. You don't know their name. You don't know anything. And you go and you sit there and I guess, I don't know if they are matching you up because the people I went, I don't think I had so much really anything in common with. They were nice people. But you go to this thing and you have dinner with them and you're talking and you just say who you are. And, you're there for 2 hours or 2.5 hours having dinner with 6 or 7, 8 people that you don't know. And time goes by fast, to be honest. And I told this one woman, people like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I do a podcast. And I asked this woman across the table from me questions about who she was and stuff. She goes, are you interviewing me for your podcast? I'm like, no, I'm just having a conversation. But I was mentally taking notes about her, and so I could talk about her on my podcast, maybe a little, but that wasn't the point of it. But everybody there was straight, and that's fine. And I was just kind of doing this, not necessarily to meet people, but to do it as like a social experiment. And then as I'm scrolling through Instagram a couple of weeks ago, another of these services comes up, and it's called Out Close. And they just launched it in Boston in early January, and it's in all these other cities, New York and LA and stuff. And it serves the gay community. And so you can say, hey, I want to meet only guys or my same sex, because if you're a lesbian, you're trans, I only want to meet people that are just like me, or I want to meet a group of people that are different, but they're all in the LGBTQ plus community. So I said, I want to meet all guys and just see how it is. So went to this dinner. It was so one guy didn't show up, and then so there were me, and then there were 3 other guys, so there were 4 of us, and one guy didn't show up, and then I guess the other spot didn't get filled, or that person didn't show up, because there's supposed to be 6 of us total. There were only 4 of us. So we were all different, and I liked all the guys. They were all fun and stuff, but and I'm going to try it again, I think, at one point, just to kind of like see like who else I can meet. We all followed each other on Instagram. We exchanged phone numbers. We have a tentative plan to go out maybe in 3 weeks or something to do this whole bar crawl. We'll see. I definitely was the one kind of leading the conversation throughout the table, making funny jokes. One guy gave me his phone. I did let me look at your Grindr and your Sniffies account. And I'm sending messages to people. And then he would look at his phone and was like, oh my God, I can't believe you just told this guy that I'll blow him for $1,000. I'm like, oh yeah, it was just a joke. But he thought it was funny, and we had a good time. But, it kind of like made me think like how it just made me step back for a moment. This is getting a little deep, but it made me step back and seriously kind of think about like, you run into people for a certain reason. And so I don't think that you just like end up knowing people for no reason. I think there's a reason why each person comes into your life. And I think that people also come into your life in cycles, and I think that you have some people that are in your life and maybe you meet them once or twice and you hang out with them because you met them through a friend of a friend, and that's great. Then I think you meet people that are in your life because of work. I think you meet people that are in your life because they're meant to be in your life forever or for most of your life. And I think that I've had a lot of people that's been in my life where, they come in to my life, you have a good relationship with them. You maybe talk or text or see them and all this stuff. And then kind of slowly you just kind of start to separate apart. Maybe you stop texting each other as much, or you're not communicating as much. And not that anything happened. There's nothing wrong with your relationship. Nobody pissed anybody off. It's just like you kind of just separate and you fade apart. It's kind of like there's no closure. There's a distance between you. So that's one of the things I think that happens often. There's also times where you have people that are in your life that you're like, this person has used up all my energy and we have busy schedules and I don't feel like there should be in my life anymore. And so you make a effort to actually take them out of your life. I don't think that's accidental. I think these people that I'm talking about were in my life at that time for a reason. Maybe they introduced me to somebody that I didn't know and that I'm friends with still, but I think all this stuff happens for a reason. And I kind of look at people like they're almost like chapters in your life. So I think about, I wish that there was social media whenever I was in college so I could find some of these people that I hung out with in South Beach and that I knew in college, because I don't remember their last names. I know their names, first names. I have pictures of them. I've even put them in Google Lens to try to find them and stuff, because I have a friend, Brian. I've probably said this before in previous podcasts, but there's certain people that I knew in South Beach that I just wish I could just find again. It's so crazy to me that they're out there, most likely still alive. Well, who knows? But I would just love to find them. And all those people that I met when I was living in South Beach during college, all the people I met after college when I moved to New York that I'm not friends with anymore, I feel like each one of those people somehow taught me a lesson, taught me something about myself. And and that's kind of like a version of myself that no longer exists at this point, because I'm completely different from when I was in college, when I first moved to New York, when I moved back to Miami, even when I lived in Switzerland in 2013 or 14. Like, I'm a completely different person than I am now. But all those people I have met out of the 18 places that I have moved over the past 27 years have all kind of been like a piece of this book of my life. Different chapters of my life, I would say. And, I just think it's important to think like, you always, me and my friend Jen, or me and my friend Mandy probably more talk about all these friends that we knew and what are they doing now? And, I wonder where they are and stuff. And it's not like, again, there's not like always has to be a conflict for somebody to end your life. Sometimes people just fade. And I think that everything happens, again, for a reason. They had a purpose in your life at the time. They fulfilled that purpose, and now they're gone. And that's just, I think, just how friendships and life is. I also think that you only have so much room in your life for a certain amount of people at a time. And you got to make space for when new people come in. And I remember living in South Beach during college where we had such a huge group of friends where I'm like, God, like, who are we going to go out with tonight? We got to like select, because it was different groups that didn't necessarily know each other. And we had to kind of like find time to schedule these people in. And it was exhausting, but I was also in my 20s and I loved it. And it was great because that's when you have all those friends. But, I think that it's just so funny how people come in and out of your life. They serve a purpose, they're gone. And then you have people that that are going to be in your life forever. There have been a few friends who I thought would be in my life forever. And, they're not. And some of them we kind of just grew apart. And it's kind of crazy that that I don't talk to them. I could probably call them. A couple I chose to get rid of. And then there's a few that, I don't know. It's all over the place. But I've had a lot of great friends in my life that have come and gone. And yeah, so maybe I'm sure you have the same story. So think about it. Think about the friends that you had in college. Are you still friends with? How many are you still friends with that you were friends with in college? Or think about your first job. How many of those people are you still friends with from your first job, your first real job? So anyway, let's get into my guest today. My guest name is Ed Wilson. He is like a forensic guy, and he's done a lot of stuff around NASA. And I'm going to let him tell his story because he introduces himself at the very beginning of the podcast. And he's got some fascinating things about NASA and things that he has found out. So I hope you enjoy the episode today. Thanks for listening. Thanks very much for joining me on the Everything and Anything. Today, I have a really, really interesting guest. So for decades, UFO stories have been dismissed as speculation until evidence came from NASA inside NASA itself. In 2023, a private archive belonging to one of NASA's founding engineers was rediscovered after sitting untouched for more than 30 years. Inside, it was missing photos, suppressed flight imagery, and Gemini-era image labeled strange object as seen during flight. Today, I'm joined by researcher Ed Wilson to unpack a forensic investigation that's now reached congressional oversight. And I'm going to turn it over to Ed, and he's going to give you a little introduction about what he has found out and about who he is. So welcome to the show, Ed.
Zach, real pleasure to speak with you today, man. I'm glad to hear about your audience. It's a lot easier for me to make a presentation to an audience that is already knowledgeable, and apparently and your audience loves what we're going to talk about today. Yeah. I sure hope it's worth their time for them to listen. Zach, my name is Ed Wilson. I have a different background from most UFO researchers today. Originally, I was a historian and rare book and document dealer. But that was only until I rediscovered the most important piece of NASA photography ever, and again, we call it the Simpkinson NASA UFO. The only reason it survived is because NASA's original Space Task Group chief engineer, Scott Simpkinson, preserved it in his personal archive, where it sat untouched in the family basement since 1996. When I first saw it, one thing became obvious immediately. It's an indisputable flying saucer. It's a shocking image, so shocking that I began cross-checking it against NASA's own material. So what I found was this. The lithograph wasn't an isolated incident. The same object shows up again in NASA's official Gemini-era Hasselblad photographs and a Maurer photograph, and again in the never-seen 16,000-frame RCA D15 mission film I recovered from the National Archives. And when you line all of these up, the secret lithograph, the public NASA photos, the hidden RCA camera footage, the object matches across all of them. Now, it's different angles and different lighting and different cameras, but the same craft. We're not dealing with a single frame. We're dealing with a documented sequence of events NASA never intended the public to see. This isn't folklore. This isn't a story someone told somebody. This is forensic, archival, scientific evidence. We have NASA's astronaut voice transcripts reporting weird craft in real time. We have NASA's technical debriefing where the astronauts deny seeing any anomalies, except one, the exact anomaly that occurred during the D15 battery failure. We have a 6-minute communications gap, a classic signature marker in NASA anomalous events. We have a perfect, indisputable cloud pattern match between the lithograph and NASA's own frame S66-54585, the scientifically verifiable match that proves the lithograph originated from a real Gemini-era photograph. Your own eyes will not lie to you. We have timestamp artifacts on the RCA film that indicate missing digital frames that should exist but don't. And this is incredible. Artifacts on the RCA film that indicate missing digital frames is just a start, because you can read for yourself word for word in NASA's own Johnson Space Center oral history the testimony from NASA's legendary photographic director, Richard Underwood. In his official oral history interview, he states clearly that no one outside a small security clear group has ever seen a first-generation NASA photograph. Every image the public has ever seen, every image researchers have ever seen, every image you've ever seen, in Congress too, is from a third-generation negative. Make sure you understand what this means. It means we have never, ever seen the original NASA negatives. So when you take all of this together, the lost lithograph, the matching Hasselblad photo, the 16,000 frames of hidden RCA footage, the astronaut transcripts, the cloud pattern verification, the missing timestamps, the National Archives recovery, the CIA MPIC duplication systems we now know were in operation, you have something NASA can no longer explain away. The craft in these frames are not lights. They are not lens flares. They are not reflections. They are structured objects, photographed by NASA across multiple camera systems in 1966. It's all 100% NASA imagery, and don't take my word for it. Follow the NASA trail and believe your own eyes, because we deserve transparency, and that's why I'm here today. So, guys, thanks for listening to me. There's so much to cover. I have to read that off so that you know we'll never be able to cover all those topics.
Well, I've seen the image that you're talking about, and it's very obvious what it is. I mean, it's the most clear, because a lot of times I feel like whenever we see people say, "Oh, there's a UAP or a UFO," it's always a little blurry and stuff. This one is very, very crystal clear what it is.
Yes, you're right. That's why it had such a profound effect on me when I discovered it.
So tell me what happened when you discovered it. Like, it was in this family basement for a while. You discovered it. What's the first thing that came to your mind?
First thing that came to my mind, I wrote it down. I made my living by uncovering rare documents. I'm a specialist in paper documents, books. I know so much about it. I make my living doing. I go to auctions, and because people don't generally care about books and documents, it's a very easy mark for me. I have located many, many items that would have ended up in the dumpster because it's just paper and books, and they are in museums today because I rescued them and sold them through very large auction houses throughout the world, and they go to museums from there. So I consider myself a grave robber, but it's a redeeming quality is that I'm saving for posterity things that been lost. So I was doing my job, and I have to be careful. I'm spending money on these things at auction, and if I get fooled, if I don't know, if I cannot verify for the general public that this is authentic, what I have here and I'm offering for sale, if I can't prove that's authentic, then nobody's going to be interested in buying it, and I've lost, my money. Yeah. So I have a direct interest in doing research that is documentable and proven, and that's what we have here. I went to an auction that I found very close to me. I'm in Central Ohio, and there was a thing called NACA. For those you guys are all versed in UFO history, and you know that the predecessor to NASA was NACA. We'll just hold up a little picture here. These books are big, guys. This is all documents, by the way. These are NASA documents, these are CIA documents, and this is the back cover of the book. Here's that UFO, guys. Yeah. That's the actual lithograph, 6 by 9 inches. When I found it in the back of the binder, in the last page, the only thing I could write, because I was cataloging in the photograph numbers, was "wow!" exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, underlined 3 times. And I was dumbfounded. So you can see there's your first image of it. That's actually what it looks like. You see the Earth below there. You see the UFO flying. And I try to include photographs on all the covers of the books. I don't expect you to buy the book. You don't have to. Look at the back photograph here. Yeah. What you see right there, and I'll get in close, that is from 1959. That in the center is Emily Ertl, who was the longtime girlfriend. She was there at his death even, of Scott Simpkinson. And that chubby-looking guy resembles me. we chubby guys get some pretty girls every now and then, and that's her. That's Emily Ertl, and she's nestled in his arms there. And in the background there, that is the very first Mercury capsule ever built. And Scott Simpkinson is in the center there because he was the lead engineer of the Space Task Group. When the Sputnik was launched, the entire United States government panicked. We were just absolutely dumbfounded that we were so far behind the Russian program that they initiated from the presidential level downward the creation of something that would bring us back parallel to them at least. And of course, we wanted to surpass them. And that was called the Space Task Group. The Space Task Group was these guys right here. Those approximately 30 engineers came from NACA, the predecessor to NASA. And they were the formation of NASA. They stayed with it. They were incorporated with, everybody's seen the wonderful movie about the mathematician from Langley Field. Yep. Mm-hmm. That counting numbers. That was the other third of NASA. So these were the engineers. That was the craft that they built down in the Everglades. It wasn't Cape Canaveral yet. It was and then, they were down there in the swamp, staying in whatever apartments they could get, with snakes crossing the threshold. And they're all from Ohio, like me. I love Florida, but boy, y'all got some vermin down there that scared the daylights out of me. Yeah, you got some snakes and stuff running around, and I don't like them either. So that's how primitive it was. These were primitive times. That's 1959, kids. That's the photograph that kind of shows the provenance of the photographs in here. There's over 100. There's basically, let me get this thing up. I'm so crippled. This is the book. That's over 650 pages, okay? We're not talking something that. It's 150. The archive, I kept this portion. I did not sell it because the original, this is the original photographs from the man, and you'll see him all throughout here. He built the blockhouse that launched him. Yeah. There you see them in. There they are down in Florida. More of them. Look at that. Look at those beautiful lines. These are all 9x11. These are, don't get Darius. Look at that. What's this? This is a good one. There he is. That's President Eisenhower. That's the first mission that you saw. What he did, this is an interesting story on this one here. That's President Eisenhower. You can see they're handing him a slip of paper, right? Yeah. What that paper was Scott Simpkinson, as the lead engineer and head of the whole program, built a blockhouse, hit the launch button, took all the Mercury missions into the Gemini mission. What he did on the first one, the purpose of the first one, it was called the Big John mission. And what the Big John mission was designed to do was to prove whether or not an ablative heat shield would work. We knew nothing, guys. These experiments had to be conducted. We didn't know how, if men could even live in space, let alone if we could get there, which we barely could. Yeah. We did not have the rocket power to do that. We were using ICBM missile complexes, which, by the way, components, you'll see the wrecked components and the built components in here. These were secret photographs. How secret were they? How good are the photographs you're looking at? In Heritage Auctions, the world's best space auction center, I had a total of 564 photos in 31 black 3-ring binders that I bought at the auction, classified by an individual binder for every manned Mercury mission, every manned Gemini mission, and every manned Apollo mission. Of those 564 photos that I bought, I sold 232 of them at auction, at Heritage Auction Space Auction. You can find them there, and they are listed and classified as from the archive of Scott Simpkinson. These are great photos, guys. So you're getting here. You can't get any. You know how great they are? I sold it for $80,000.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
Okay. Now you see, I'm telling these things so that I can verify it to the provenance of what this archive is. So this story right here is what he's handing him is a piece of paper that on that first mission to prove whether or not they didn't know, they thought it was. It's all theory until you actually do it. Yeah. It proved that the heat shield would work and you could bring an astronaut back alive in that space capsule. So what Scott Simpkinson did was he wrote a note saying, this is the first message ever sent from outer space. And then he had all the engineers sign it. All those engineers signed that piece of paper, and he tucked it behind the heat shield on that craft you saw the picture of. He tucked it behind there. If the mission worked, then he would be able to retrieve it. If not, it would burn up with the spacecraft.
Yep, makes sense.
That's him handing that piece of paper to President Eisenhower. Okay. They had proven that we would be able to enter space with the technology we just tested.
And we'll be right back. Okay, now back to the show. I want to go back and ask you a little bit about the Gemini-11 lithograph.
Yes.
Because on it was written, strange object as seen during the Gemini-11 flight. This image is so important, right?
Yes.
And it was missing from the NASA archives.
Yes.
Do you think the reason why is because
I know Simpkinson, not Bart Simpson. So when you guys go out there, look for Simpkinson, not Simpson.
He personally preserved it, right? And that's why it's still here, I believe. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. So the question is, and everybody wants to know, and you're getting some breaking knowledge today. As I told you, I apologize for being like a minute late to this interview with you guys, because I'm still continuing the research and writing the third book that will be out within a month from this date about CIA documentation of all this. Here's the
What's the latest? Tell me the latest news.
And the latest is a NASAM 156 report from the CIA reading room. It's a presidential document from originally from 1962. It's top secret. It's classified top secret. I just downloaded it and am preserving it for the book to make sure that it's out there. It has the exact CIA reference number. And in it, it states exactly explicitly that the Gemini photos were part of the satellite imagery that they wanted to keep secret because of the back engineering that can be done and the damage and military information that can be gained from photography. There's more than just that one. Yeah. The first ones I have 10 other documents from the CIA reading room. Let's just go with one of the most important ones was from 1965, and I'll give you the story of what happened there. In 1965, they had launched from Cape Canaveral, right? They're up there in space, and naturally the astronauts, it's all new technology. The Hasselblad camera that they use, the reason they came up with that Hasselblad camera, and it's just the handheld camera for the space mission, is that one of the astronauts was also an Indy 500 car fanatic. And he used the Hasselblad camera to take beautiful, explicit color photos of all the Indy 500 racers that he would go there, and he would just love the race cars. Beautiful, beautiful photographs from it. So he suggested that they use that on a camera. Okay. And that's what they did. Now, then granted, it was modified, okay? And this is important that you know this. This is from the Johnson Space Center archives, the Richard Underwood testimony. You'll have to read this. It's there to read. You can download it on the computer. All the film on these missions were not normal film. NASA, as different from the Russians, created a new kind of film. It was on nylon. Okay, the film was nylon based, and it was the thickness of saran wrap.
Wow.
Yeah. So when it comes time for Congress to verify whether they're seeing the real original film or not, guess what? He testifies, and you can hear it. It's a 2-hour testimony. Guys were dying and from that early space moment, and NASA decided we have to do an interview of all of them before they go. And he just lays it out right there that what they did was that saran wrap thick film got all the original images. From that, Richard Underwood was a CIA operative. I'll tell you the story about him getting kicked out of the CIA and why. But he was an operative with them, which is why they chose him for NASA. Werner von Braun chose him from a pre-selected list of people to set up the entire NASA photography department, and he did. And he says this. You can read it in his own testimony. He would get the film. He hand-developed it because he didn't want to take a chance that a machine, they had automatic development machines, but this was the most important film of our time. And he wanted to make sure it was properly saved. In case the machine jammed, there would be no way to open that machine and save the film. Well, by hand developing it, he knew that he could, if something went wrong, he would be able to save it with the fixer, et cetera, right at that moment. So he hand developed every single one of those frames, and he had the clearances to be the man to do that too. From there, he made, and this is in his testimony, he made the second film derivative, okay? So the original film, and he says it right there, the original film, I made several second derivative copies of film, and this would be on normal film, okay?
Okay.
And then the film went back into the freezer, and no one will ever see it again. So every time you make a copy of the negative, you have some image degradation. Yeah. Now, they still have the original, but a saran wrap thick, it's still somewhere, probably still there in Building 8 in the Johnson Space Center, in the freezers, but they don't want to take it out because it is so fragile. But the second derivative is the best that they had. Now, what happens and what the memos from the CIA are going to show, and the last one I just was reading before I came to you, it says the exact same thing. In 1965, the Gemini-5 craft was orbiting around the Earth on its mission, and they were using the Hasselblad camera.
Okay.
And they took photos of Cape Canaveral. So they passed over where everyone was down there watching them, looking up at the sky and waving high and stuff like that. And they took photos and told them, hey, we captured some photos of you guys down there. So this will be fun for you. So they did do that. We already had spy satellites going up, so back to 1956 and 58 when they developed the NPIC. NPIC stands for National Photographic Interpretive Center. It was created by the Central Intelligence Agency specifically to get intelligence from photographs. You can back engineer so much information from a photograph. You can see details with the magnifying lenses and the high contrast films that absolutely will target an ICBM missile into your grandma's window if you want to.
Yeah.
So that's the danger of this film. These guys, these soldiers, risk their lives every day. We pay them to defend us, and I have no problem with that. If you have a family member who's a soldier, you'll do anything you can to ensure that they survive the horrible ordeal of being a human. But consequently, I don't begrudge anyone keeping these things secret, because I don't want to see my family killed any more than anyone else's either. But I just got to be practical. It's a practical world. We have to be aware that we have enemies and that I don't want my family killed. I try to defend me. So they took those images, and we already had the CIA MPIC Center for our secret spy missions, okay? For instance, the Corona program. You can see the Corona program they launched the satellite, but it's a multi-expensive camera that was used on that satellite, right?
Okay.
That camera was very expensive, and they knew that they could get good photography from that would pinpoint all those Russian military bases that they wanted. So they knew that, and they had been doing that for years. What they did not realize to the extent yet was that the Hasselblad camera was such a good camera system that when it was handheld, this is what the astronauts were using. It's like a Brownie camera was back then. They didn't realize until they got those photos back, and the CIA document is titled the montage document, because they made a montage of those images that they took of the people down in Cape Canaveral. Mm-hmm. And when they looked at the montage with their photo analyst, it was all hands on deck alert. That was so clear and so well done that you could back engineer a map that would land an ICBM missile right up your keister if you wanted it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was all, and that document was, whoa. We have to reevaluate how we're going to handle NASA photography. And so the other 9 documents explicitly detail what happens, kids. And this is basically, they rerouted everything. If NASA didn't have full control over their documents, or the photographs, I should say. Mm-hmm. Because what happened was Richard Underwood developed them, and then the documents that I have, all from the CIA reading room, say, from now on, Underwood routes the second generation negative straight to us here at MPIC. Okay. Now MPIC is a military organization. When they are fighting a war somewhere, you need to get the evidence of what's going on with the enemy immediately to the people in charge. So they were ready to work on a quick basis. And that meant that they would be able to get the NASA photos back to them in a quick basis. But here's the catch. Because the photos were so valuable to our enemies, they had to be degraded first. And what that lithograph is on the cover of the book is exactly what it's well documented, exactly what they did at the National Photographic Interpretive Center. It was part of their mission. And that mission was to provide a sanitized briefing document.
Okay.
And what that means is a lithograph takes out all the engineering information you can get from it, but you can show it to a general, or you can show it to a NASA safety engineer, which Simpkinson was, or you can take it to the President of the United States, which is exactly what they did with the U-2 spy craft when they flew over Cuba, and they took photographs of what, a normal photograph, you would expect it to show something like, hey, what is that, a farm silo? But no, the U2 plane definitely proved that those were Cuban, Russian missile silos, okay? And of course, we nearly went into World War III all over those photographs. So that's how valuable photographs are. That's why they created the NPIC. And the briefing document was Kennedy went on TV and he held up the photos of those missile silos on Cuba. He had to do that because the public had to know about World War III for this reason, and I'm going to show it to you because you need to. But it was a sanitized briefing document. They took all of the engineering specs that a trained photo analyst could get out of that image.
Okay.
And that's what this is. Lithograph is a CIA NPIC sanitized briefing document. It takes all accountability away from it. Now, here's the rest of the program, okay? That's what they do. They send the second generation, which is the finest generation they have that's not in the freezer, goes to NPIC. NPIC processes it immediately to see what kind of military intelligence do we have to degrade from this film, because we have to show that film. The entire multi-expensive $1 billion, gazillion dollar NASA program has got photographs, and they're going to want to see them. So they process them, they sanitize. First of all, the third generation, which is all anyone's ever seen, the third generation is already somewhat degraded, and not terribly, but you've got to take all the military intelligence out of there that you possibly can. So NASA did not have control. They developed it right there at NASA. They sent it off to NPIC in Washington. Washington degraded the images. Anything they did not want seen, they could do it through photoshopping. Airbrushing. You have a UFO there, you want to get rid of it, airbrush it out. No one will be able to tell from the negative until now. Modern day forensics, you can do some Fourier analysis and stuff like that and say, hey, somebody took something out there, which I've done some of those experiments. But then they send it back to NASA. And then we have the memos from NASA saying, hey, can we see this object? Because NASA no longer had control of it. And they had briefings down there where they would take the briefing reports down to NASA. We have the CIA documents saying they took them there. We have the CIA documents where they brought NASA up. They brought the NASA personnel up, and to NPIC was the first skiff, which is, of course, where the only place you're allowed to visit or to see top secret documents. So NASA did not have control. Now, what does that imply? We all get so angry here in the UFO community because we know that they're having congressional hearings. And heads of NASA go up one after the other, and stand there, raise their arm and say, I swear to tell the truth, or you can take me out and shoot me right now and take my grandmother with me. It's against the law to lie to Congress. And they stand up there one after one and say, expressly say, we have no photos of UFOs.
But why do you think that is? Why do they not want to tell people?
I'm telling you the reason right now. The reason is they didn't. And that's what spycraft is. And remember David Gresh's testimony about spycraft, and he says, I'll tell you about spycraft in a skiff, because he doesn't want to reveal to you what spycraft is. Spycraft is, they took the photos, they sent them to the NPIC, and the NPIC was a repository. They sent back to NASA what NASA would get, which did not have anything. It did not have the UFO in it. It's a sanitized briefing document that they used to only give very few people, and probably 8 to 10 people were done. The most boards they ever made, and all the records I can find, was 25. 25 briefing documents was the maximum run they ever did. Most of them were 4 to 10 documents. That's all the people that you can help keep a secret with.
But the government obviously knows that there are...
No. What part of the government? This is compartmentalized information. This is why they did those briefing boards, okay?
But the 8 to 10 people that you said...
Only 4 people were aware, more than likely, about that UFO document. 4.
Okay. And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. Do you think the president knows? All these presidents know about it?
No. They explicitly, he's just another politician. In the book, you'll find a page that's got a whole chapter. It's called Gordon Cooper's Revelation. And in it, you will find the exact YouTube video. You can watch yourself. This book will tell you where all this evidence comes from. Don't believe me. I'm another human being, okay? I can lie like nobody else if I chose to. That's why you can argue with me all you want, okay? I'm not the one making these assertions. I'm giving you the documents, and I don't want you to believe me, and I don't want you to believe anyone else either. I'm a skeptic. I had to be a skeptic because I was buying expensive stuff and trying to sell it, and I'm not going to believe you because you say, oh, yes, this is definitely genuine. No, I'm going to prove it myself, and that's what I've done with this. In here, there's a Gordon Cooper chapter, and the Gordon Cooper chapter, it's a YouTube video about an hour and a half long, and it's Gordon Cooper, a Mercury astronaut who was a successful national hero. And in the beginning of it, he starts and he talks about his jet fighter experience in Germany back in the 1950s and how the wing that he was flying in went up to their maximum elevation, and they're way up ahead of him, over top of them, were some intelligently controlled craft running maneuvers. And he says, I knew they were UFOs. Now, this is Gordon Cooper, this and that. So he knew about that, but that he said, so that's his instance of where he actually saw them. Now, the rest, and I've got it marked in the book, the exact second you can go to. He describes about how the way, but basically what he says is this about Congress. And you have to understand, secrecy procedures have changed over all time. The original were a constitutional democracy, and there is civilian control over the military. But in order to keep military secrets, you have to be subservient to Congress. Well, that does not work, and this is exactly what he says. He says, basically, anytime you give any information to a congressman, it's like giving him money to go to the candy store for you. You ain't going to get all the candy back. And these guys leak, and it's just natural. You know, we're not designed for secrecy. We're not designed for much except war, apparently. But so he says, what we did, and this is, he talks about when they came up with the U-2. He says, when the U-2 spy plane was shot down, here's the other alarming thing, and it was a big scandal, and it was a scandal for NASA, and I've got the documents where they're talking about NASA's been scandalized, and they're all pissed at NASA because it was the CIA that kept the secret, because the original classification, classified, secret, top secret, your eyes only, all these classifications only derive from military documents. So according to our congressional system of civilian rule, every single classified document originally meant it was a military document. And because of that, it was subject to oversight by Congress. And you can see the disdain that the military has as their people, or the CIA. Their spies are killed. Their men die on the battlefield because loose lips sink ships, and no lips looser than a congressman. So they had to circumvent that. He points out that they were shocked. They did not know about the U-2 program. And the reason he gives is this, because we changed the classifications, not for the military, but we created a new category using the military-industrial complex called sensitive but unclassified. And he says, because it's unclassified, we no longer have to submit it to Congress. They cannot subpoena unclassified material because it's not part of the, so that's spycraft. And if you look right here, and you look at this, unclassified. By the way, this the image this was taken from is on page 4 of the 1966 Gemini-11 mission summary completed. It was a secret mission report. For 12 years, it was secret. Okay. This is page 4. And it doesn't show the UFO. It's a cutout. And it actually looks like this. Here it is right here. Mark Braven, wonderful guy who worked with Richard Nolan on his videos. This is the actual photo. This is F66-54585, the big image. Okay. You can see that right there. This little black square insert there is page 4 of the Gemini mission. Now, there were many more important things. Why did they put that on page 4? Okay. Why is that the first Gemini image you see? Well, the reason, there's got to be a reason to it. But you can see it's only a partial cutout of the original image. And then, so you got the That's the NASA photo that you can see in the Arizona State University March to the Moon has all these photos you can see in Doctor with. NASA doesn't have them anymore. They give it to Arizona State University. You get online, March to the Moon program. You can get every single mission. They have every image that NASA has. But remember, NASA did not get them all back. That's why Underwood, in his NASA history, says no one's ever seen anything but a third generation. The CIA got the second generation, and they sent back to NASA third generation degraded photos, so you cannot get military information.
I get it.
So there you go. That's S66-54585. That's the page 4 image at the very first image in the NASA document. And then right over there, matching the exact cloud pattern.
Yep.
It's the UFO.
Why do you think that humanity's not ready for this?
Oh, I think humanity's ready for it. That's not the purpose of this thing. Here's what's going on. And throughout all time, we've had to have struggles and fights for everything in our lives.
Yeah.
Whether it's sex partners, whether it's military resources, whether it's just food or place to hang your hat, we fight over it. It's the way we're made as human beings. I am no better than any other man, and I don't really feel that anyone else is. But I'm not here to judge, but I can judge myself, and I know I'm just as bad. You put me in a corner and I do stupid things, and actually you don't even have to put me in a corner. Sometimes I'm just walking around and I do stupid things. Right? I'm a human being. So we have a system that you have to fight for everything. And if you remember Dwight Eisenhower's leaving statement, I think his final address to the nation when he left office in 1960, he had a warning, and the warning was this. The main concern that I have now for our government is the military-industrial complex.
Okay.
And those are his words. And the military-industrial complex are exactly this. There are all kinds of different divisions in the government striving for funding, striving for power.
Mm-hmm.
The head general, the chief of staff of the Air Force is fighting for funding so that his Air Force pilots are not killed. The chief of staff of the Army is fighting for funding so his troops aren't massacred on the field. The Navy, of course, is trying not to be caught off guard and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. And there's all competition. And this is deadly competition. And I will give you an example. You can read for yourself.
Okay.
Talk about, again, Johnson Space Center, NASA, or not NASA. It's the Johnson Space Center is NASA. The Richard Underwood oral history. And you've got to read it. He let loose all these secrets that I'm telling you about. But this is his background. Richard Underwood originally was a Seabee in World War II. With ammunition on islands where there's, every bullet flying over your head could set that ammunition off, an incredibly dangerous job. He survived that, and then with his GI Bill went on to get an education, and the education involved photography and geology. So he ended up, because of his military background, caught their eye with his photographic expertise and became a U-2 analyst for the U-2 spy photos. He was on, and he flew 4,000 hours in the B-29s, doing the actual camera operation himself and surveilling everything that they could get him on. And he was going everywhere back then, and everyone was pretty much defenseless from the air. And you could be surveilled easily. Well, not easily, but it could be done, dangerous but doable. And he was doing 4,000 hours of flight. He lost the hearing in one of his ears just from being in that darn B-29 all those years. So he was a dedicated man. But he was doing a spy mission in Guatemala. Now, obviously, you don't hear it. You can't find the record where he was a CIA operative. But it's obvious. These spy missions, and he did do the U-2 stuff, so he had to be CIA. He flew this spy mission in Guatemala. When he came back to the tarmac, he says, and this is, and you'll read it for yourself. I'm not making this stuff up. Don't trust me. I'm human. Read it for yourself. He said, when I got back to the tarmac, there was the most beautiful native Guatemalan girl I'd ever seen in my life. My heart went out to her. Immediately, I was entranced, and I married her. Now, this is what transpired after that happened. What happened after that is the general in charge of the spy photography that they were doing, when he learned that he had married the Guatemalan girl, called him into his office, and these are his words. You can read in the Johnson Space Center. He said to him, and I quote, "I should take you out and have you shot as a traitor, right?
Wow.
Without a trial."
Wow.
Because he married a native Guatemalan, and the work he was doing was so secretive that they would not allow that. So from there, he went on and left and became working for the University of Colorado Department of Mines, because, of course, natural resources, which we all need. And like I say, we're fighting war in Venezuela right now. Gee, I wonder why we're going to have a war in the world's largest oil reserve.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what he was doing at the University of Colorado, mapping mining resources. While he was there, he got a call, and now he had worked for the CIA, so he obviously had clearances, although they weren't happy with who he married. Then got rid of him. He got a call, and it was a guy, he said, oh, it's a guy with his German accent. It was Werner von Braun. And Werner von Braun asked me, he said, I understand, Braun said, I understand you have experience of photo analysis and photo imagery capturing from 30,000 feet. Is that correct? He said, oh, yes, I'm very experienced in that. And he says, how do you think you would do at 150,000 feet?
What would he say?
He says, will you come down and speak with me?
Okay.
And that's when he was charged with constructing the NASA photography department.
Okay.
So that's in there, and you can see that. And then, like I said, the general, and this is in quotes, you'll read it, you'll be, and I love the guy too. I love these military guys. They're so gutsy, because the quote later on goes on, well, after the general told me that, I should be taken out and shot as a traitor without a trial, naturally that pisses you off, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Is it the way I look at it? And he looked at it that way too, because he says, and now all these years later, I'm still with the same woman, and not only am I with her, but we have 4 children, and not only do we have 4 children, but all 4 of them have now graduated college, and guess what? Some of them are working for NASA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here this general wants to have him shot, and he can't help but say, yeah, and see how you are?
Yeah.
and see how wrong you were about me? So that's, I love that. Those are stories you can read in there. This is information nobody has gone back and looked at. So what you see right now, that's the blockbuster news. It's not UFOs that's blockbuster. You could do a New York Times article today, and you could say in the New York Times, boom, evidence that nobody has ever seen more than a 3rd generation NASA photograph.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Okay, now back to the show. So how you've been working on this for a while,
since March 2023.
Yeah. So how has this investigation, do you think how, I think it's going to change history, but how does it make you trust institutions also? Because even if there were 3 or 4 people that seen the original,
I'm not. Okay. No, and I don't recommend it either. I'm a skeptic. Yeah. Okay, I had drilled into my head. You guys don't realize how primitive we were back then, and how hard the government worked to downplay all the information that they didn't want out there. Okay.
Yeah.
We used to call it 10 hats. Someone's wearing a foil hat, right?
Yeah.
And they would do little cartoons of someone running around with the tinfoil cap on to keep the brain waves from being read by the aliens and UFOs. And they made so much fun of them that no one could hold a job. Any pilot who saw a UFO, if he opened his mouth, he lost his job. And those are the greatest jobs on earth, being a pilot. Number one, they love to fly. They fly or die. It's in their blood. They want to be up there. And number 2, it's very lucrative too. It pays quite well.
But
So
why do you think they don't want this information out, though? Like, why do they not
lots of
want pilots
reasons.
talking about this?
Lots of reasons. Here's the other story. What's this one? This is from Philip Corso's book in 1996, I believe. Philip Corso, of course, was the very first whistleblower. And his
Okay.
whole book, the book is titled The Day After Roswell. If you haven't read it, you really need to read it. I could see why it was disclaimed so much back at the time that he released it, because he's talking about stuff in there that we're just now learning today. He was talking about artificial intelligence, and the worst thing he says he did was he didn't think about what the implications were of the microchip that he took into the industry to get done. So this is 1996 that he's the first, and he's got CIA documents in the back of the book. He's like mine books. They're filled with documents. In other words, and don't believe me, believe the documents is what he's saying, just as I do. Here's how this system works. He was working in the Pentagon. His official job title was Foreign Technology Division.
Okay.
So he was a member of the Foreign Technology Division. The general that he worked for was an absolute fantastic engineer. Obviously, to be head of the Foreign Technology Department, you have to have an engineer capable of making the correct decisions. But not only was he a fantastic engineer, but he inspired the love of his men. In the American annals of history, there's a place called Pork Chop Hill in Korea, and he was the general who was leading the assault on Pork Chop Hill. But what his men loved and what inspired their loyalty and inspired Corso's loyalty was when they were during the Battle of Pork Chop Hill, the general himself went to the front lines and participated in the battle. And this would inspire so much. The life of a lowly dog face is not absolutely, what do they describe? From one moment of absolute boredom to the next moment of absolute terror. And here you are facing death. You're seeing your comrades' faces blown off right beside you. And lo and behold, the general, not the sergeant, not the captain, not the colonel, the general himself is there alongside you in the battle. And that inspired such loyalty that Corso made a promise that he would never reveal what the general had given him until he died. And that's what happened with his book. He wrote the book when the general died, and he was released from his pledge to a man who he idolized. Now, his title, Corso's job, if you think about it, it's in the Pentagon. His office was in the Pentagon, and the general gave him charge of, he described it, one filing cabinet. And in that filing cabinet were all these bits and pieces of wreckage, which he says were the wreckage from the Roswell crash. Now, he also talks about we didn't have very much because we were just the Army. He says the majority of it belonged to the Air Force. Again, remember what I'm telling you about these guys fighting battles, literal battles for funding and stuff. And not only that, but these guys are, Philip Corso, you will see a picture of him in the book, and there's lots of pictures. He was a presidential advisor. It's all documented. Just start doing the history of Corso and his boss, that the head engineer that was his boss. These guys are documented. They are the real thing in the Pentagon. And he was a mousy looking little guy. It looks like he was about, maybe 5'6" or something. He was balding. He had great big black eyeglasses on. And he looked the part of an engineer. He had a photographic memory. He spoke many different languages and then looked the part of an engineer, but he was a cold-blooded killer. He was a spy. And he had been, after World War II, he had been over in Italy trying to trace down the Italian Mussolini UFOs that you hear of. So he makes mention of that. And he talks about the Soviet agents over there, and it was a deadly thing. This is post-World War II. These guys, we'd just seen the whole world blew each other's faces off. Things were very serious, and we were very primitive. We didn't have a cell phone to talk to anyone. We were on our own. If you were a spy, you don't have a cell phone you can call today and say, hello, home office, I need some help, send an F-15 in here. No, you're on your own out there doing a mission that's a multifaceted mission, using only your wits to survive, and he was a cold-blooded killer. And here is an example of why this stuff is so withheld and the battles that are going on behind the scenes to try and govern an ungovernable group of human beings, which is what we are. He had his office in the CIA. He had been followed. His job in the Foreign Technology Division was, for instance, this is a real incident that can be documented. They had stolen the plans for a Brazilian-designed machine gun. Okay?
Oh.
Yeah. And his job was to take the plans to a manufacturer, and they knew he was from the Foreign Technology Division, okay, which, we don't know. It's an understatement when they say foreign, because how foreign is outside space, right?
Yeah.
So, but they take the Brazilian machine gun, they back engineer it, and lo and behold, it turns out to be the best machine gun ever made and became an American weapon, okay?
Yeah.
That's what Foreign Technology Division was for. And it was secret, right? We don't want the Brazilians know that we're stealing their machine gun, right?
Yeah.
So that's secret information. So he's a spy. He gets that information, and his secret job is to take it to an arms manufacturer. The arms manufacturer relies on the government for contracts, okay? So they ask no questions. Say,
Yeah.
hey, it's good to see you. I'm back from the Foreign Technology Division. We need you to back engineer this for us.
Okay.
Tell them where they got it. They didn't say it came from Brazil. And they didn't say it came from my file cabinet of Roswell UFO remnants.
Mm.
And that's what the book's all about, how the general gave him the file cabinet of the UFO parts of the end. For instance, there's also in there, he had the report of the autopsy they did upon the alien that came from that craft. And from that autopsy report, the eyelid of the alien showed interesting characteristics that allowed them to develop the first night vision rifle scope.
Wow.
Because the eye of the alien was incredibly sensitive to dark, so that they could see in the realms of space if necessary. Yeah. So, and I remember that because I'm draft age, guys. So, for the Vietnam War, that's how old this old man is. But I remember when they came out, and it had an orange scope on it. And it was about the size of 2 grapefruit put together. You mounted on top of an M1 rifle. And by God, you look through that son of a gun, and it was a miracle to us. My God, it's pitch dark out there, and I can see the outline of this guy coming to come. This was science beyond our wildest imaginations back then, and it was proven. And then, of course, he also did the fiber optics. He had fiber optic cable in his thing, and he took it, like, I think it was Bell Labs or something like that.
Yeah.
The only fallibility with his book, and it leads people to make unnecessary degradations of what he says, is the fact that he talks as if it was his discovery that did it, okay? But I know what I'm saying is they already were doing work upon fiber optics, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like it was undone, but this had been going on before him, and he doesn't really give credit. To look back at Nikola Tesla, and what happened to Tesla's scientific documents on his death. They've mysteriously disappeared to the same place that he was working for. Okay. Yeah. So we've always had a foreign technology department. Every government does. Without it, you're defenseless against the smarter people in the world. So here's what he did. He was a killer. He was trained. And in the books, you can read it for yourself. Remember, it's called The Day After Roswell. I recommend the first edition. I just reordered the first edition because it's so hard for me to find references that I want to reuse in the older Bantam edition that I originally had. But it's in there. He had made a delivery previously, the previous day, of foreign technology to one of the manufacturers, and he had been followed by a CIA agent. CIA had their office in there. The CIA agent's boss was up there, floor above, I think the way he puts it. He took his gun from his belt, went up to the CIA agent's boss's office, went in and spoke to him. He took the gun out, put it on the table in front of him, and these are his quotes. This is what he told him. He says, "If he follows me again, you will not have him." He's a mousy-looking guy. but he was deadly serious because he was a killer.
Okay.
So when you look at him, you will never believe that guy was as deadly as he was. But that's exactly what he did. So what do you have here? Let's analyze it. You have got the Army, United States Army, telling the United States Central Intelligence Agency, stay out or I'll kill you.
Yeah.
Now, that's what's going on to this day. It's been going on throughout all time. It's human nature. We are horribly violent creatures. I don't care, what you might think, but I just see it everywhere. It's in the history books, and I'm a historian. We're horribly violent creatures.
Yeah.
These battles occur all the time. As I said, you have the general of the Army fighting the Navy for money and funds, right? But not only that, but for power. You have President Eisenhower saying, my greatest concern is for the United States government existing with the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex, you've got Bell Laboratories at that time working on, say, fiber optics, right? They got the patents for that, and they were allowed to keep the patents in order to do the work, right? And that's millions and millions and millions of dollars, the whole world's wealth coming down to these high-technology companies just because U.S. government property was given to them as a source of income, okay? And now, if it's exposed that that's where they got the technology to do that, if you can show that the technology came from it, in a lawyer society, you lose all kinds of lawsuits and money and profits and stuff. These things, we all protect our own homes. We all protect that which we hold dear for ourselves and what we deem necessary. And that's the way human beings are. And that's what's going on today that's keeping revelations across. You will see in these testimonies, you will read from all these UFO guys talking about, hey, well, we have this department definitely wants to let this information out. They're working to get this stuff declassified. But lo and behold, Chuck Schumer puts a bill out that requires them to provide a certain report that confirms all this stuff needs to be released. And they put it into the government oversight or into the budget request. And lo and behold, the representative from right here in Ohio, who represents Wright-Patterson Air Force Base District in Dayton, Ohio, he vetoes it. The one guy vetoes that from being imposed. And it's just interesting to me. And he's right down there at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There's money and influence. Basically, guys, let's not kid ourselves. And we have the best government money can buy. And it's always been that way. It's that way throughout history. People rise to power based upon how ruthless they want to be, as well as how smart they are.
Do you think in our lifetime, though, that they'll come out and actually say any of this is true?
Well, let's think about what I just told you today. What do you think will happen when more people see the CIA documents where they're mentioning that, as I said, we've got the Johnson Space Center document. No one's ever seen more than a third generation photo.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. No, not until you told me.
Did I tell you where you can read it word for word yourself?
Yeah.
And did I tell you who the person was and that he was the one who developed that film?
Yeah.
Things might change here. That's some world breaking news. And now, what's the other world breaking news? You don't even have to mention UFO. Just the fact that he said that and that the NASA photographs, you've never seen more than the third generation, that's news.
Yeah.
Don't even have to mention UFOs, right? And here's the other thing. The CIA documents, which I'm providing, my new book will be out this month. I've just finished, as I told you, I just got out of the CIA reading room. A wonderful, wonderful new document, quotes, and that's in the CIA reading room. You can find it. It takes a little difficulty, but I know how to do it after having worked so long at research. I've got the exact report number. You can find it and read it for yourself. And it confirms that the government in 1965 took control of NASA's photographic releases, and they went directly from Underwood to the CIA National Photographic Interpreter Center. They were processed there. They were degraded. Anything that wasn't wanted, that needed to be deleted, was deleted there. And NASA received back third generation negative. And that's factually in the documents. You can read it. You've got the numbers. you can read it for yourself, and it's CIA documents. It's not Ed Wilson. Don't trust Ed Wilson. I don't trust anyone. That's why I do this, because.
But I think the world is ready to know.
I think the world's more than ready, don't you think? And we would all like to know, all of us. The question, it's a theological thing. I'm sure you wonder why you exist as much as I do, especially, life's a cruel and bitter place to be. Yeah. Okay. What is the purpose of all this? Well, I've had my own spiritual experiences, but that's only for me, And,
but Three Eye Atlas, I think, has really opened up people's minds too. The whole Three Eye Atlas.
Right. I've been following Avi Loeb's documents daily. You go to Medium, okay? The name is Medium.
Yeah.
He publishes daily his reports in Medium.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's a courageous investigator, okay? And that's what it takes, courageous investigator. Basically, I love physics as a hobby. I'm not educated in it, but I'm not educated in anything. I'm kind of a self-taught guy. Everything I do, I've taught myself. And if I'm interested in it, I seem to be pretty successful at learning.
Yeah.
So I enjoy the physics behind what he does. Everything is well documented. Again, presentation is part of it. And we will see. I've written some papers that are on Medium too. And then you have the interesting testimony from like Borland. Remember Borland describing the characteristics of the hull of the UFO that he saw, the shimmering opalescent type.
Yeah.
Well, that's similar to what I noticed on the when I work on the lithograph, the segmentation in the hull, a tessellated surface like that. You match that with the latest peer-reviewed science. I use Quantum Magazine. I recommend to everybody. Will directly link you to peer-released, most up-to-date engineering papers that you can read, and they talk specifically about self-healing materials.
Wow.
Right? So, and I've got the articles. I wrote a couple papers on it. I have the references to peer review, but I'm nobody. Okay, I do these things as a hobby. All right, I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a physicist, but I read them recreationally. Okay, I have a general overview, but what I do is my papers are all based on peer-reviewed papers. Okay. So.
Well, I'm going to put a link to your Medium articles in the description of this podcast.
Well, I've been banned from Medium.
Oh, you have? Okay, so I won't put it in the description of this podcast.
Oh, I mean, it's still there. You might be able to find it. But I've been banned.
Well, where could people go to find out more about you and about what you do? Because I think
this is exactly what you need to do, okay?
Okay.
Now, my books are very expensive, guys. I want to make a buck as much as anyone else. But I didn't do this for money, okay? I didn't have a choice. I was selling documents and making profit at auction houses all across the country until March, when I went to the auction and I discovered this lithograph. From that point on, I was so captivated by what I saw that I have not gone to another auction or sold anything since. So I gave up my entire income, right, guys? I didn't do it for money. I did it because this was a mystery that I wanted to solve, okay?
Yeah.
And I don't have control over it. I am obsessive on doing what I want to do. I'm a spoiled human being.
Yeah.
If I want to learn something, good luck trying to stop me, because I'm going to do the best I can. And that's captivated me. My friends at Swan Gallery, some of the best document auctions in the world, they probably think I'm dead because nobody's heard from me. Seriously. So I gave up everything. What I'm going to give you is the information on where to see the books. You don't have to buy them to see the information, okay? I've done the best I can to put right on the covers as many photos as you can. Here's one of the D15 experiment photos. Not only is it one of them, but if you look at the bottom there and at the top, that's the UFO that matches the lithograph. Okay? There were 16,000 frames of footage that came from the National Archives. They told me at the National Archives they had no record of anyone ever requesting them before. And then you look at the back cover of the book, and look, these are all NASA images, guys. This isn't Ed. You see those? Look at those. Those are NASA images. This isn't Ed Wilson. Don't trust me. I'm another human being, right?
Yeah.
I put them on the back of the book. I put them on the back so you could see them for free. It's expensive. I want the information out there. I don't need any money. I do this out of love, okay? So go to Amazon.com, put in the Simpkinson NASA Archive UFO, and Amazon shows you the front cover and the rear cover of every book. So go to Amazon, the Simpkinson NASA Archive UFO, and then just look at the pictures on the cover. You don't have to spend all that money on it.
Well, I think it's interesting, and I'm going to invest in it because I think it's interesting, and I would like to see the whole book myself.
Well, good, and get the second one too, because the second one's got all the other end. The first book is where I discovered the voice transcripts, and you can read them for yourself. You can see, it'll show you the document covers and where they were classified for 12 years. No, and they were made in 66, and they weren't released till 78. Nobody cared till then. So that's shown in there. Every document, the lines in there. I found 3 instances where they talk about a UFO. What's that just flew over your head? I don't know. What was that? Maybe we should turn around. No. And then voice transcripts being deleted, 6 minutes of silence. And then is the recorder back on? And I found 3 instances of that, and they all occurred during the D-15 experiment. So that first book led me to the voice transcripts and the testimony from other guys that led me to say, hey, they were seeing these things during the D-15 experiment. And that was a camera experiment. It was a night vision experiment. It was the very first orthicon tube television camera in space. 1966, Gemini-11, they put the first TV camera small enough to fit in the back of the capsule, pointed it at a mirror that flapped open on the bottom of the ship, took movies. They got 16,000 frames of footage.
Wow.
I was the first person to look at them. I went through them one at a time, and that's what you're seeing on the back cover of Hidden Under Our Nose. Okay, that's book 2, and that's what you're seeing right there. See that blue
awesome,
sausage?
Yeah.
That's frame, I forget the number on it. This one on the front, that's frame JPG 000515. Okay. And then there's military timestamp clocks. The electronic clock appears on there. And you can match the timestamp on the clock to the film to the voice transcripts, which are also measured to the second.
Yeah.
So you can tell what was transpiring. So the first book tells me what to get. The second book is after I retrieved that footage, and I started analyzing. I found those anomalies in the footage, and then I started cross-referencing in the analysis of them with the lithograph, and they're matching. And now the third book that's coming out now, but which I tell you right now, I was telling you some of the documents.
Yeah.
I've got a quick list of 10 of them. It's going to be mind-numbing what happens when people start reading them for themselves. Don't believe me. I'm a human being. So,
well, I think what you're doing is fascinating, and I'm glad you're doing it.
Well, Zach, it's been a pleasure meeting you and your audience. Listen, hey, you guys out there in Zach's audience, let me tell you something here. There's a matter in serendipity in life, and everything happens for a reason. And the reason that I'm pretty sure probably one of you out there today listening to me right now and Zach is going to make a major contribution in this field, because it's going to strike home in your heart, and you're going to say, wait a minute, why does this sound true to me? Is this real? And if you're that person, you just remember when this old man's dead and gone, I told you this was going to happen to you. That's the way life works. It's serendipity. Somewhere in your audience is someone who's hearing right now the message that's going to make them a great contributor to this field. Zach.
Great. Well, you're great. I love what you're doing, Ed, and thank you so much for being on. I will put the description in the description. I'll put
I'm almost right. Yeah. You can also go to, now I have it as an assistant that Seth Lamancusa. Then Seth Lamancusa, if you're going to do a podcast, please put his website in the bottom.
Oh,
Seth Lamancusa, the YouTube website.
Yes, I have that.
Right. And in the bottom of the YouTube thing, there's a section where you expand it, and he has a drop box. But first of all, you've got to check out the beautiful video he made. It's only 9 minutes long. It covers everything in the first book. That was the first video made. Doesn't have all the evidence we have now, but it's fantastic. It is definitely something you can see in 10 minutes and go, wow.
Okay.
But at the bottom, there's a drop box, and all the images I'm talking about, the high definition images. My images on the book and stuff are with a photo phone. All right.
Yeah.
I took a picture of, the stuff, I wanted to get the information out there. And like a sanitized briefing document, once you see the picture on the phone, which you just did, you're not going to argue, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But what Seth has is the high definition actual photographs used, and you can download them for free, kids. I'm putting these photos out there for free because I believe we need to share this information.
That's amazing.
But do buy the book too, because even fat guys like to eat, all right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on, and you were great, and I love the work that you're doing, and I will put all the links into the description for everybody to go in and check it out. And
wonderful.
Thanks so much. And I'll look for your third book coming out in the next month or so.
Yeah, I think we're getting to a point where some very breathtaking things have the possibility of occurring.
Thank you so much for being on, Ed. You were a great guest. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave a comment. And don't forget to go to Seth's website and go to Amazon and check out the books and help Ed out. Buy a book or two.
No, don't buy a book. Jesus Christ. No.
No, I think they should. I think they should support it.
Yeah, well, they're expensive.
Yeah, but it's worth it.
Okay. My pleasure. Guys, do your work. Love it.
Thank you so much, Ed, for being on. Talk to you soon.